The question of whether the Islamic world could unite militarily over Gaza is a subject that combines history, politics, military strategy, and the deep emotional weight of religion and identity. To explore this, we need to consider the current geopolitical landscape, the past attempts at military unity among Muslim nations, the existing alliances, and the practical realities of modern warfare. The idea of a united Islamic military force is not entirely new. It has been spoken about by leaders, activists, and ordinary people across the Muslim world for decades, especially whenever conflict erupts in Palestine. The Gaza crisis has once again ignited this debate, bringing into focus the strengths, weaknesses, and unique selling points of such an idea, as well as the enormous challenges it faces. If we think of this concept as a kind of design project, the exterior represents the public face, the speeches, declarations, and symbolic gestures that suggest unity. Many Muslim-majority countries frequently issue joint statements condemning Israeli actions and expressing solidarity with Gaza. These pronouncements, often made through the Organization of Islamic Cooperation or at emergency summits, give the impression of a shared front. But like any exterior design, this facade can be polished and powerful while concealing structural weaknesses beneath the surface. The key performance question is whether these countries could go beyond statements into coordinated military action, which is an entirely different level of commitment. Moving to the interior, this is where the real mechanics lie. The Islamic world is vast, encompassing over 50 countries with different cultures, languages, economies, and regimes. Their militaries differ widely in terms of training, technology, doctrines, and strategic priorities. Some, like Turkey, Pakistan, Iran, and Saudi Arabia, have large and capable forces with advanced weapons, while others rely heavily on external suppliers or have limited defensive capabilities. The interior design of a united military would need to integrate these diverse parts into one system. That means shared command structures, unified logistics, compatible communication systems, and agreed-upon rules of engagement. Without this interior cohesion, even the most polished exterior would collapse under the strain of real combat. Performance is another critical factor. In military terms, performance is measured by readiness, mobility, coordination, and sustainability. Could Muslim nations deploy quickly to Gaza or to surrounding areas? Do they have bases, supply lines, and secure air corridors that would allow sustained operations? Some countries, like Egypt and Jordan, share borders with Israel and Gaza, but have peace treaties and security arrangements with Tel Aviv, making direct involvement nearly impossible without breaking those accords. Gulf countries like Qatar and Saudi Arabia have advanced air forces but no geographic proximity, meaning they would rely on distant deployments and possibly face interdiction by Western powers. Pakistan, which is geographically distant but militarily strong, could in theory contribute manpower and expertise. But distance, politics, and economic strain limit its role. Iran, with its network of allied militias and experience in asymmetrical warfare, already exerts influence, but its involvement risks escalation with the United States and Israel's allies. So while the performance capabilities exist in fragments, merging them into a coherent, united military performance remains a monumental challenge. Safety features in this context are not about protecting passengers but about preventing catastrophic fallout. A united Islamic military intervention in Gaza would not occur in a vacuum. Israel has one of the most advanced militaries in the world, backed by the United States and often tacitly supported by Europe. Any attempt at large-scale intervention would risk direct clashes with Israel's defense systems, including its nuclear capabilities, and potentially trigger wider wars in the Middle East. The safety mechanisms that individual states rely on alliances with global powers, defense treaties, and balancing acts between East and West would be severely tested. Leaders must weigh whether the safety of their states, economies, and regimes can withstand the risks of direct confrontation. For many regimes, survival of their own governments is the top priority, and this makes collective action difficult, even when the emotional pull of Gaza is undeniable. Now, when we examine unique selling points, or what makes this concept of a united Islamic military appealing in theory, the first is the sheer scale of the combined force. Together, Muslim-majority nations account for hundreds of millions of people, millions of active and reserve soldiers, vast oil and gas resources, and some of the world's key geographic choke points, from the Suez Canal to the Strait of Hormuz. This collective power, if unified, would rival or surpass any other alliance in terms of manpower and strategic depth. The symbolism is also a unique selling point. A truly united Islamic military would embody the idea of the Ummah, the global Muslim community, acting as one. This would resonate deeply with populations across the Muslim world, who feel a strong sense of solidarity with Palestine. Another unique feature is the variety of military experiences within the Muslim world, from Pakistan's conventional war history with India, to Turkey's NATO experience, to Iran's expertise in asymmetric strategies. If these experiences could be synthesized, the force could theoretically combine conventional and unconventional strengths. However, design flaws become evident when we compare the ideal with the reality. Different states have competing regional ambitions. Saudi Arabia and Iran often view each other as rivals rather than partners. Turkey, with its NATO ties, balances between Western alliances and Islamic solidarity. Pakistan is focused primarily on South Asia, and North African countries face their own internal challenges. A united design would have to reconcile these competing ambitions, which is far more difficult than agreeing on a joint declaration. In a way, the blueprint exists in the minds of millions who yearn for it, but the architect's political leaders often draw their lines with different rulers. Looking at price, we need to understand that military unity is never free. The cost is not only financial, though that alone would be enormous, requiring joint funding for arms, logistics, training, and sustained deployments. The greater price is political and strategic. Countries would risk sanctions, loss of Western investments, diplomatic isolation, and possibly devastating wars. For leaders of countries with fragile economies or close ties to the West, this price may simply be too high to pay. Even for wealthier states, the calculation of cost versus benefit often tilts toward restraint rather than confrontation. At the same time, not acting has its own cost, particularly in public opinion. Many populations across the Muslim world feel frustration that their governments issue statements, but stop short of action. This disillusionment can erode legitimacy, especially in moments of crisis. Thus, leaders find themselves trapped between the high cost of military action and the political cost of inaction. If we analyze the idea in terms of overall conclusion, without drawing final closure, it becomes clear that the question is less about military feasibility and more about political will. The technical aspects: exterior unity, interior integration, performance potential, safety risks, unique selling points, and price show both great promise and serious flaws. The Islamic world does have the capacity in theory to unite militarily over Gaza. The manpower, resources, and emotional drive exist. What is missing is a coherent political framework, trust among states, and the willingness to bear the risks and costs of such unity. The balance between ideals and realities remains the decisive factor in whether this vision could move from aspiration to action. This exploration shows that the possibility of military unity over Gaza is not simply a question of strength but of design, performance, and political engineering. It is a vision that inspires millions, yet at the same time exposes the divisions and vulnerabilities within the Islamic world. The blueprint is both powerful and fragile, carrying the weight of history and the burden of present realities.